So we'll start our class. Keep your mics in mute, please. Thank you, Prolika. Good afternoon once again. Welcome back to yet another class on machine learning. We are learning about ingredients of machine learning as part of our first lesson in first unit. In the last class, we have seen what are the ingredients of machine learning and what are tasks, models, and features. And we have discussed in detail about tasks. So today we will discuss about models. So this will be the talk of today's class, and mostly about this one, the geometric models. So models, as I have discussed in the previous class, is the output of a machine learning algorithm, or whatever you do in machine learning, and whatever output that you get out of a machine learning algorithm or a machine learning program is called a model. Right? And these models are of different types. They are geometric models, they are probabilistic models, they are logical models, and this is one way of classification. The other way of classification is grouping models and grading models. So this is what we will be discussing in the next few classes. After this, we will be discussing about features, which will finish the first lesson of your unit. So today we will discuss about the models. So what is a model? If you observe in this diagram, this is what we have seen in the last class. So a model, the oval in blue dots, dark blue dots, is the model. So model, as you have seen, is the output of the learning algorithm or the machine learning algorithm that we got from the data that you have given for training. So you have to give data, that is a training data, to your algorithm, and this whatever output you get is a model which will be used to derive the output from the existing data that you have, or from the new data, or any existing data. So now, so here if you can observe, this model is one of the central concepts or the main concepts of machine learning, the process of machine learning. As because this model is what is being learned from the data in order to solve the problem. So this is a learning problem. So this is what is learned, a model which is derived out of what we have learned from the data using our learning algorithm. So this is the most vital part of machine learning, or the central concept of machine learning. So this is a model. So models are one of the key, one of the three key things that we need to derive a machine learning model. Then you have tasks and you have features. So this is the key. So there are different kinds of models, different ways of modeling your machine learning algorithm. And there are a lot of models. And these models are generally classified into three kinds of models based on mainly intuition, or the way we visualize or you imagine your model. So first one is your geometric models. Here the intuition that we use is from geometry. That is, you'll be using planes or distance metrics or linear transformations, like that. So you'll use something from your geometry. Then if you use probability distribution as your intuition, then these kind of models are called as probabilistic models. Right? So which we'll be discussing in tomorrow's class. And logical models are obviously derived where we have logical expressions as an intuition. So these are called as logical expressions. There are many kinds of intuition, many kinds of machine learning models, but mainly we classify this into three broad kinds of machine learning models. And alternatively, you can also classify your models based on the way you operate that model. That is the modus operandi. The modus operandi, or the way you operate your model. One way is called as grouping models, and the other one is called as grading models. In grouping models, what you do is you divide the entire instance space into segments or parts, and in each segment you use a simple model to learn, and that machine learning model, and you can use separately different models for different segments. So that is a grouping kind of a model. The other one is entirely different. That is, if you consider the entire instance space and you apply a single global model over the entire instance space, then that is called as a grading model. So we will be learning about all these probabilistic models, logical models, grouping models, and grading models in due course of your curriculum. And for the today's class and the next few classes, we are just introducing these models to you. We are not learning in depth what that model is, how it works and all, but we are just introducing these models, right? But today we will concentrate our discussion on the geometric part of models. What are these geometric models? Why did we call these models a geometric model? We are not trying to learn these models as of now, because we will be learning about these models later in our discussion, not today. Right? So please put that in your mind. So today's topic, we will be learning about machine learning models, especially the geometric models. So today's class is geometric models. Now, what is a geometric model? Before you understand what is a geometric model, we made a reference called instance space here. Instance space here, and here also we did not mention it, but most of the places where you have a geometric model, or wherever you have a data, you have something called as an instance space. Most of the geometric models are considered to be applied over an instance space. Now, what is this instance space? So instance space is a set of all possible or describable instances that are available in our data set, right? And usually this set has a geometric structure, because instance space is more important in geometric models. So for instance, if all features are numerical, then we can use a feature as a coordinate in a Cartesian coordinate system, right? So if they are numerical, you can use it as a feature. You can use a feature as a coordinate in an instance space. So geometric model is constructed directly in an instance space using geometrical concepts such as lines, planes, then distances and all. So you use geometric concepts to construct. Now, for example, if you understand instance space, if you did not understand instance space, I'll give you an example. For example, if you consider emails, your inbox has, say, around 1,000 emails, right? Take it as 1,000 emails. Out of 1,000 emails, what you want to know is you want to know how many emails that your friends are sending, right? Personal emails, right? So you'll consider, you describe them, you describe the emails, you list all the emails based on the sender. and you'll get sometimes you'll be getting from friends, relatives, from your college, right, like that. And there will be also some of the emails that are junk from someone you don't know. You cannot classify them. So what you do is you take them and put them in spam. Now, out of 1,000, if you have put 300 into that spam, and now your data set becomes 700 only. But whereas your entire data is 1,000. So now to get your desired output, you consider only 700 because 300 is useless. They're nowhere related to us. So, but they are there in your system. So the instance space is 1,000, the entire thing, out of which you have considered 700, which are valid as your data set to run your program. Got it? So instance space is the entire space available, whereas a data set is a subset of your instance space. I think you have understood what I wanted to say, right? So that is an instance space. Now, geometric models are always constructed directly in an instance space using geometric concepts, which we'll see. For instance, see basic linear classifier as an example. Because linear classifier is a geometric classifier because you use lines as your geometric concept. A line which is a geometric concept. We'll see in the next slide. Before going to that, the main advantage of geometric classifier. What is the main advantage? The first thing is it is easy to visualize because you can easily understand a graphic rather than a data in a table, right? So it's easy to visualize. But that easiness is there if your dimension of your instance is 2D or a 3D, two-dimensional or 3D. But in real time, most of your data will be multi-dimensional, or you can say it's a high-dimensional space. It's not a 2D space or a 3D space. It's a high-dimensional space because most of the real-time data have features or coordinates which run into tens, hundreds, thousands, and even more. So, in realistic machine learning algorithms or machine learning problems, you have this high-dimensional spaces available. So, the two-dimensional, three-dimensional are easy to understand for discussion, but realistically, in machine language, you have high-dimensional. So, generally, if you have a high-dimensional geometric algorithm, you use a term called as hyper. If you remember that in your stat or maths class, if you previously have learned, because something called as a hyper. So if you're using a plane, if it's a three-dimensional or a two-dimensional, three-dimensional, it's called as a plane. But you have if it's a multi-dimensional, it's called as a hyperplane or a hyperpolar. So the word hyper, if it is prefixed to a geometrical concept, then that means it's a multi-dimensional or a high-dimensional instance, right? So mostly it will be there, but for our simplicity, we'll see a two-dimensional model now. So that's a basic geometric classifier called the basic linear classifier. So the basic linear classifier, which in your textbook it's there in figure, it's already there in your figure 1 in page 5. If you see your textbook, I think if you have downloaded it, you have a soft copy of it, or else tomorrow I'll share it with you. So this is another picture of it. So it's there in page 22. So this is the example that you find in your textbook. Now here you have a basic linear classifier. It's a two-dimensional plane. Now your two-dimensional plane. So you have your x and you have your y. So a two-dimensional plane. Now what this has? It has some instances. Some instances with plus sign plus. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has some plus instances plus and some minuses. Right? Let's name them the pluses as positive p and minuses as negative m. Now there are two sets of classifiers now. Now in basic linear classifier, what you do is you draw a line or a boundary between these two sets. So you have derived them into two parts, and you can draw a line which forms as a boundary between these two sets or these two instances, sets of instances. Now this line, I have drawn this line. Imagine I have drawn this line from here to here. Right? I can draw something like this also, this also. You can draw any number of lines in this plane, right? Which divides these two kinds of instances, positives and negatives. Okay. Now what you have is, now your basic linear classifier constructs a decision boundary by halfway intersecting the line between the positives and the negative centers of mass. Now, what does that mean? That means you create a line here, starting from the center to the center in P. So center in N to center in P. Now, what you do, this will become this line. So these points can be joined by this line here. Now you observe that this intersects this boundary at some place. Say it is x. Now how do you represent this? Now since this is the center of mass, that means it's the average of the points n, the center. So you call it as n. And this is P, because now this line can be represented by an equation W. Right? So W, and this equation can be represented as W into X, W dot X equals T. So this is the equation of the basic linear classifier. Now W is equal to P minus N, the center here to center here, right? So P minus N. Now, what is X? X is the intersection part where your classifier line intersects the boundary. Now, what is this? How do you get this X? Now, at the top, if you look at the top point, so this becomes the P value here, and this is the N value. Here, this is the N value. Now, it intersects somewhere in the middle of it. So, this is P plus N by 2. So, this part, the X is somewhere called P plus N by 2. Now, W is equal to P minus N and X equal to what? P plus N by 2. Now, you can replace these two in this equation. Now, T will become W dot X. Now, what is T? Now, T, if you replace this, now the decision threshold, the T is equal to P minus N dot P plus N by 2, or it is P square minus N square by 2. So now you can put the values here, you can replace them, and you can find different values of X. So this is, so where X denotes the length of the vector X. So this X vector length, the length of the vector X. Now, Here, since this is simple, this is easier, this is done, this can be calculated. But you know that since this line is drawn parallel to the x-axis and you got a line parallel to this. So, but not always this happens, because you can draw a line something like this which divides these two. Now, how do you draw these lines? So how close you can draw it to P, or you can draw it to this, close to this. Now, this is how close I can draw here. So there is a gap in between. Now, why does this gap comes? This gap comes because there are a lot of empty spaces in your theta. Because if, say, for example, you have taken 10,000 words, right? 10,000 words as your instance space. So the entire 10,000 words as your vocabulary, you have a vocabulary of 10,000. So the entire vocabulary is 10,000 words. So that becomes your instance space. Now you have a document. I want to know how many words in this 10,000 words are there in your document. So your document will not have the vocabulary, entire vocabulary. So you write a document, or you write a paragraph, or a page in your document, and you don't always use these 10,000 words, right? You sometimes you don't use certain words in your document. Say, for example, you are writing a letter in that document, and in that letter you don't write all the words you know, right? So what happens if you take the document? You will not have words. Some words are missing there, which are there in your vocabulary. So there will be some gaps or empty spaces, which means the certain words are, if you classify the words in your document. So say, for example, how many times each word occurred. Right? There are places where certain words are not used. Zero, value 0. Say, for example, you have something called in your vocabulary you have a word called Zoom. Zoom is a word, but in your letter you did not mention the word Zoom, which is in your document. Now I'm calculating how many words are used and how many times each word is used. Now, if you take Zoom, Zoom is not at all used in your document. It's there in your vocabulary, but you did not use it. Zoom is used 0 times. So these zeros will be there. Or you will not use all the 10,000 words. Your document is only for 500 is of 250 words. So certain words like, say, say, because, certain words which you use frequently, right? So they are mostly used, but certain words are not at all used. So there are a lot of empty spaces available. Now, if you take that instance, then this gap will be there between the instances that you have. There will be a lot of gap available. Now, if you take that gap into consideration, now what happens? What happens? Your distance between the instance and your boundary may vary. Now, what you have to do is you have to make sure you have a minimum distance. So that is solved by another model called the support vector machine. Here, what the support vector machine does is, now here what we have done is we have considered a line something like this, not a in previous example we have seen we have considered a boundary like this, but now we have considered a boundary like this. Now your W should be perpendicular to this. So in previous case, you can consider here. Now this will become like this. The W. So these are the vectors that you have arrived. Now in support vector machine, what it does is, now it considers a margin. Now if you look at this margin here, so the dotted lines are the margins towards each side of your boundary. Now the margins can be extended maximum to a place where your one of the instances becomes closed. Now this is the maximum, and these are equidistant from the boundary. So this distance, sorry. So this distance and this distance are same. Now, so this becomes the margin of the boundary. Now this dot, these instances which are encircled with red are the instances that are on the boundary of your on the margin of your boundary. Now these are called as support vectors. So these are called as support vectors. These points, the circle data points, are called support vectors. Now the decision boundary learned by a support vector machine from a linearly separable data from figure 1. That's a figure 1 is a previous picture. Or this picture, the decision boundary maximizes the margin. So what it does, the margin maximizes, which is indicated by the dotted lines. Now this margin maximizes. This is the maximum width of your boundary. So this support vector machines is a model where you can calculate. Now you can calculate. You can do a lot of machine learning. I'll run this using this model. You can predict a lot of. So you can predict these blanks, right? So this is the area which you will not have any data. So you will not consider this. So this is how this machine, this support vector machine model works. So this is another example. So don't worry about this model, how they work and all, because we will be learning how they work and all later on. What they are, how they work and all in later classes. Only thing what I want you to understand now is we use geometry as an intuition, as a consideration to understand our data and convert that into a model. So that is what we are looking at today. Another thing that we frequently use with our data is the distance between the instances. Right? The distance between the instances is mostly used in geometry, mostly when you use something called classification. If you remember the example that we have learned on the first class or the second class about a person who likes some music, certain kind of music, and dislikes certain kind of music. So the distance between one instance and another instance that we already know determines whether that instance, the new instance, is of the same class or not. If you say, for example, there is an instance here which is of type X. There is another instance here of type Y. Sorry, Y. If you have a new instance, say here, now what is this instance most likely to be? Sorry, anybody? Anybody can tell me? Why is this? Anybody? Any answer? Can type it on the chat. No, Z. What is Z likely to be? This instance is type X. This instance is type Y. If I have a new instance Z, what is it likely to be? Of type X or type Y or a different kind? Anybody? Anybody? Pravalika, Lavanya, Gautami, Gauri, Priyanka, Madhavi. Anybody? Yeah. I have a new one. This is of type X. This is type Y. What is this? This, whether say let's not call it as Z. This is A. Say this is A, this is B, and this is C. Now, what is C can be? C can be is a type because there are two types here, X and Y. C is nearer, the distance between C and A is less than the distance between C and B. Right? So, it can be another type also, but basically because since you have only two types, you can put this in this category, type X. It can be in type X. But if you take it further, if you can do further, if you can establish that these two are different in a different kind, then you can put it in a different category itself. So that is what we have here. If the distance between two space instances is small, then the instances are similar in terms of their feature values. So if the distance between two instances is small, then most likely they have they may be similar in terms of their feature values. So nearby instances can be expected to receive the same classification or belong to the same cluster. So same cluster, these can be put in the same cluster. Right? This can be a cluster, that can be a cluster. Right? So if you remember this example, that when we have seen about an example, right? About songs. Some person with this is the intensity. And this is a tempo. Remember this? A person dislikes slow songs, but what he does is there are certain songs that he likes. So he likes the songs which are fast in beat. Right? Okay. So what happens? So what happens? You can always do one thing. You can put similar kind of things into the same classification or cluster. So this becomes one cluster, and this becomes one cluster. Right? This cluster is called dislike, and this cluster is called like. Right? So if you remember, if some new song comes which falls in this cluster, so then that means this cluster. Then that means that song is also liked by the person. But what if something comes like this? So this here falls in between these two. You can always say that this is a different kind, but what we have, because we know there are only two types, what we can do is we can draw a cluster based on taking this as a center and see if you can get. So now this seems the distance between this and the nearest song is like. So automatically this also falls in the category of like. So this is what we have. So this is what happens in a nearest neighbor classifier. And what we generally do in a nearest neighbor classifier, we have something called as k nearest neighbor, or an algorithm called as KNN algorithm, k nearest neighbor algorithm, where you divide your instances into k number of classes, and each k you assign certain weight. and depending on the weight or certain feature, the size of certain feature, you put similar features, similar the instance of similar k value of k into the same class, or we can weight each neighbor's vote inversely into its distance, right? Then we can apply the same idea to regression tasks by averaging the training instances function value. Now, once you say, what you can do is you have one here. Now again take average of this and you get a center point. This is called as a centroid. Now you try to calculate a centroid, and the centroid determines the size of the class, or the distance, or the of the perimeter of the class. Now this is what your k nearest neighbor expression. Now this is how it happens generally. So whenever you have a k, you divide your data into k clusters. What you do is you say, for example, this is an instance. You have 3 instances, so your k is 3, k equal to 3. Now what you do is you put your you divide your clusters, the total instances into 3 clusters. You start putting each instance into one cluster depending on certain feature of it. Say weight, right? Say this is you put 1 here, so this may be a centroid. Maybe you calculate a centroid as 3. This can be 5. This can be 5. This can be 7. Now, what if something called 3.5 comes? 3.5 also is put here. Now you calculate the average, the mean value of this, right? This becomes something called 2.5, 3.25, right? Another comes, which is 6. So it will be here. Now, what's the mean value? This becomes 5.5, right? Now you get something called 8. So this will become 7.5. Now, depending on this, now this is set, this is a set, and this is set. Now every time you calculate the mean value of the feature. Now that mean value should you reassign centroid, which is the mean value, right? So once you are done with the entire classification, if something like if you change the sub of one from here to here, here to here also, if this centroid doesn't change, that means you are done with your classification or cluster. So this algorithm is called as k-means algorithm, which is widely used in machine learning. Then, so this is the algorithm that we generally use, and we'll don't worry about the algorithm if you don't understand, because you'll be learning about this in detail in the later part of our syllabus, where you learn about k nearest neighbor classifier, k-means algorithm, and all. So this is a clustering algorithm. But the important thing that I want to impress upon you is, so this algorithm, you are taking the distance between 2 instances as a criterion. So that's why these algorithms also fall under geometric classifier, geometric algorithms. So here we have seen 3 kinds of algorithms. One is basic linear classifier. Then we have seen support vector machines. We have seen k nearest neighbor, KNN classifier. We have seen k-means algorithm. These are all come under, these kind of algorithms come under a kind of machine learning algorithm, the machine learning models, called as geometric models. Right. So this is what I wanted you to understand. So you are using geometry as an intuition in classifying your or you're naming your model. Now, the next thing is the probabilistic models. Right. Before going to the probabilistic models, I think probabilistic models will take a lot of time, more time, because it's a lot of explanation is required. So I don't think we can continue further today. Tomorrow we'll discuss about probabilistic models. But today I want to understand if whatever we have discussed till now, is it understood by everyone, or do you have any doubts? If you have any doubts, please type it on the chat so that I can go back and again discuss whatever you did not understand. Any doubts? If everything is clear, we will call it a day for today. Probabilistic models we'll discuss today. Thank you, Madhavi, Pravalika. We will discuss probabilistic models tomorrow. Meanwhile, one more thing is by tomorrow morning, maybe or tonight, I'll share you a code, a Google Classroom code, and I'm about to finish that class, and whatever presentations I'm using, whatever textbook I'm referring, right, whatever material I have, I'll keep posting in that so we can interact in the Google Classroom. You get your email alerts also. I'll post it, post the code, joining code of that Google Classroom in our WhatsApp group. So kindly log into that. So it will be easy for you to go through the presentation before joining the class, so that it's more you understand that more clearly, right? And there will be a discussion among us, right? Not just I talking, taking the class, talking the entire one hour. At least I want a couple of questions so that we can have a good discussion at the end of the class every day. Okay. Hope you have understood all the things that we have discussed today. We'll call it a day. Okay then. Bye for now. Thank you, Pallavi. Thank you, Madhavi. Okay, so let's log out. We'll meet tomorrow, same time.